What's the word you would use to refer to this room? It depends, right? Well, when you've lived abroad for long enough, you reach this funny point where you think you've nailed the local language. You feel like, oh, I really fit in. And then some old Americanism jumps out your mouth and immediately gives you away. My name is Evan Edinger, and despite living in the UK for over a decade now, there are still some American words and expressions I find myself saying, for better or worse. These are the 13 American words I still use over the British ones after 13 years of living in London, including one that always makes Brits look at me as if I've said something completely insane. So the annoying thing about the first word is, even though I know it sounds so incredibly American, and oftentimes I don't even want to use it, it just sounds so polite and fitting that I just end up saying it anyway. And that's restroom. If I'm in a restaurant, a museum, anything like that, and I gotta go, well, my brain defaults to what the most polite version of the word is. Even though my brain may flag up the word restroom as, whoa, that might not be the best word to use here, and then my brain is frantically trying to spit out the next word in the related list, that one also sticks out over here. Bathroom. You'll pretty much never hear the word restroom in the UK unless it's from the mouth of an American. And when it comes to the word bathroom, well, Brits I know will rarely ever use that word unless specifically referring to a room in a house that has a bath or a bath. When it comes to a public restroom, Brits use a selection of what I can only describe as, well, uncharacteristically more vulgar words. The main word I hear around these parts is simply toilet. Where are the toilets? Can I use your toilet? Not the room for the toilet, because for Brits, the word toilet means both where you relieve yourself and the room where the toilets are. My first year here, I had quite an awkward faux pas where I asked my manager at Urban Outfitters where I was meant to wet the cleaning rag. I couldn't see a sink anywhere. And with a straight face, he told me to use the toilets. You can only imagine the look on my face trying to explain to him, I do not think I'd be comfortable doing that. I mean, what kind of operation you running here in the UK? Or, hey, maybe they've just got really clean toilets. It was a new store. I don't know. And if my manager had used the other word popular over here, it wouldn't have done me any better. Loos. Where are the loos? I gotta go nip to the loo. To me, loo seems quaint, cute, and a little bit silly at the same time. I also have heard gents, like where are the gents or where are the ladies? That, to be fair, sounds a little bit less vulgar than the other ones, but while I still use the more American word toilet paper almost exclusively, Brits over here use loo roll, bog roll, or toilet roll. They do love the word roll. Even paper towels over here are called kitchen roll a lot of the time. So, it's a little added fun fact. The next expression is one I don't even think about when I use it. It's just such a popular way of asking for something politely in America. Some people in the UK get so bent out of shape about it and claim it sounds rude to them. Here's a clip of me using it in a second channel vlog from a few years ago.
Can I get 2 twin with flake, please?
Yeah, sure.
Can I get 2 twin with flake, please?
Yeah, sure.
Then I get comments like these. This rude American says, can I get, rather than a polite, a blank, please? Well, not quite. I did say, can I get a cone, please? Imagine thinking that's rude. Saying, give me a cone. Okay, I can perceive that as pretty rude. It sounds direct and more like a command. All right, can you give me a cone? Well, that sounds nicer. It's not a command, it's more of a request. Can I get a cone, please? Yet again, this sounds more like a polite request. Supposedly, for many older Brits offended by this expression, it's more polite to say, a cone please, or can I have a cone? Which to me just feels very pedantic. The only difference between to get and to have is that to get implies direction. Have is a neutral nothing word in this sentence, but get implies from you. Can I get a cone from you? At the end of the day, if someone's tone is implying they're being polite about it, like me ending my request with please, complaining about a word difference like that is, I'd say, more impolite than the original word choice. Can I get a thumbs up, please? Oh God, he's so rude! On the topic of the word have though, Brits also use this more neutral word in other places I still haven't adapted to. What would you describe the verb that you would use when you are going into this space in your house? What are you doing in there? If you're feeling dirty and you need to clean yourself, well, in Britain, you'd go to the toilet, or rather to the bathroom, and you'd have a shower. Yeah, I guess it's your shower now. In American English, the expression I still use is to take a shower. I'm gonna go take a shower. Where am I taking it? Well, yeah, the expression sounds equally funny in American English if you think about it. Even though I only say I'd take a shower, weirdly enough, when it comes to a bath, well, I'd have a bath. So my brain defaults to the American expression for the thing I do way more often and say more often, which is showering, and the word I don't use as often, bath, has been fully swayed to the British version. It's so strange because saying I'm gonna take a bath It sounds very weird to me now. So interesting little difference as my brain gets more and more splintered into not knowing what the heck is the right language it wants to use at whichever time. Now it's time we round out the more polite words in my list before we get to the more wilder ones. If you're walking behind someone and you notice they accidentally dropped something out of their back pocket and didn't notice, what is the first thing you would say to get their attention? And you want to be polite. My favorite one I hear in London all the time is the triple crescendoing sorry. Like, sorry, sorry, sorry. Brits are just really sorry that you've dropped your thing. Also common over here is the simple, excuse me, excuse me. But somehow for me, I still default to the much more American sir, like, sir, hey sir, excuse me, or something like that. I once got told off by my manager for greeting customers and using sir, as it sounds, quote, old-fashioned and, quote, not very cool. So, not the first time I've been told I wasn't very cool. That's all cool. When I think about it though, even though I do use the term ma'am and miss every once in a while, it's much more rare. And I'm wondering if that's because a lot of the times it doesn't actually do a good job of getting someone's attention over here. The thing about the word miss, for instance, is that for the most part, it's used exclusively in secondary school. Brits often refer to their teachers as simple miss, not Miss Stewart or Miss Cutforth, just miss. Miss! So I suppose if you don't work in a school, well, you would never expect to hear yourself referred to as miss. If you're a woman in the armed forces in Britain though, well, then you might be referred to as ma'am. But not quite, because with the accent here, even though the officers are supposedly saying ma'am, it sounds to me more like mum with my American ears.
Urgent call, Mum, relayed direct from HQ. It's him, Mum.
Thank you very much, Mum.
I've heard it in TV shows like Slow Horses, for instance, and they're always like, yes, Mum. And I'm like, Mum?
Cartwright?
Mum. Mum. Mum.
I wouldn't want to refer to my superior officer as basically my mom, but I suppose there's like a difference that Brits are able to hear the difference between mum and mum. Mum's the word, I don't know. Mum is the word. Yes, Mum. See, to me that sounds like something someone would say after they'd gotten into trouble. On that note though, gotten is a lovely word, which I use all the time and is surprisingly an Americanism, though it wasn't always. Time for a fun grammar lesson. We're again coming back to the verb to get. In American and British English, the verb is the same in the present, get, and the simple past, got. I got them to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I get them to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That works in both the US and the UK. But once you want to get into the past participle, well, that's where it all changes. Side note, if you did ever want to understand grammar a bit better, learning a foreign language or two really does wonders. Anyway, the past participle of the verb get in the UK is the same as the simple past. It's just got. In Britain, it's more accepted to say, I have got them to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Whereas in the US, you'd say, I have gotten them to subscribe. Gotten was originally used in Britain, if you can believe it. They just sort of forgot about it again. Or I guess you could say it was forgotten. It's even used in the King James Bible. But as before, as Brits stop using a term they themselves created, they then get really creased when others continue using it and pretend like they don't know where it came from. We know where it came from. Like the word sophomore, which, is from my video on American university words, linked above. Same sort of thing. Even after living here for so long, hearing I have got better at it sounds so wrong and grating to my ears compared to I've gotten better at it. In American English, we do use I have got, but usually only when the thing we have got is a noun or represents a stable state. I've got a golden ticket. That sounds fine. You can replace have with got, and if the sentence still works, I have a golden ticket, well then you're just fine saying I've got. All good. When the thing that you've got is expressing change, movement, or a passive outcome, gotten then comes into play. And if the have trick doesn't work. I've gotten sick. I have sick doesn't make sense, but have gotten is more like became in this sentence. I became sick. I've gotten wealthy. I became wealthy. You wouldn't say I have wealthy. It doesn't make sense. But in Britain, I guess it does. And this is an interesting one where younger Brits are slowly adopting the American version, thanks in part due to social media. So there is an age rift between Brits that use got and those that use gotten as well. I guess you could say they've gotten used to hearing it. Boo! The thing is, language doesn't exist in a vacuum. Or, as they say here, in a hoover. Not quite. You see, vacuum as a verb, as in I'm vacuuming my living room, is a word I still use quite frequently. Though I do find myself slipping into using the more British Hoover from time to time. In my video on the secret ingredient ruining ice cream, linked above, we talked about how, due to the fact that Mr. Whippy entered the UK market early and aggressively franchised, Brits began referring to all soft serve ice cream as Mr. Whippy, even if the ice cream was actually of good quality like that you can get in the US. The same thing happened with the word Hoover over here. Hoover vacuums were founded in Ohio in 1908 and entered the UK in 1919, early enough that the name very quickly became the default word for vacuuming, and now most Brits just say hoovering. The word for when a brand becomes so popular it replaces the generic word is proprietary eponym. So use that at your next pub quiz. And though I still use the generic word vacuum most times, I do still use the American proprietary eponym Band-Aid more than anything else. In the UK, if you get a cut on your finger, you might ask for a plaster. Interestingly, the German word for the same thing is ein Pflaster. So just plaster with a lisp. And that's because both words come from the same old medical term in Latin and Greek, meaning a paste or dressing that you stick onto your skin. Emplastrum. So where exactly did the Band-Aid come from? You can guess. America lost the original word because Johnson & Johnson, family company, America lost the original word because Johnson & Johnson's product, the Band-Aid, introduced in 1920, took over so completely in the 20th century that the brand became the word. Americans did traditionally use the word plaster for medical dressings before this, but these days, when I and many Americans hear the word plaster, our first thought is usually to construction materials like plaster of Paris. In fact, Brits also use the word this way, as drywall in the UK is called plasterboard or plasterboard. And yet the main way you might actually hear me use the British word is as a verb, meaning incredibly drunk. Only in the past tense, pretty much. Luke got so plastered last night. Have you seen him? It's f***ing dreadful. This next word is one I think you'll be surprised to find out is not only from a brand name, but also an onomatopoeia. I still use the American word for this little thing here, which is a zipper. I zip up my zipper. In the UK, this is actually just referred to as a zip. So this is a zip, and this is a zip. You zip your zip. I don't like it, all right? I prefer the word zipper, I'll say. The 1920s were a really popular decade for inventing things that went on to become so popular they changed the way that words were said. Because in 1923, an American company called B.F. Goodrich Company implemented a new zip fastener on a pair of boots and coined the term zipper based on the sound it makes when you zip. Zip! The word zipper never really caught on too well in the UK, and the shortened zip ended up being used far more often. You may hear zipper used here or there or on the telly from time to time, but not without the swift sound of an angry Brit somewhere tutting at the term. As an added fun fact, compressed files are often zipped, meaning you need to unzip them to get the contents out. And usually this is matched with an imagery of a zip and a zipper, but that's actually just coincidental, as the origin for the name zip file was due to how fast it was meant to be. Like, it just zipped really fast. But the zipper design was only added later as a visual metaphor. The more you know. Speaking of zippers, if your pants zipper is undone, in the UK, someone might say, your fly's undone, or much more weirdly, your flies are undone. In the US, you might hear something similar, another idiom, or XYZ, examine your zipper. But here's the thing. It's XYZ. These three letters come up very often when I'm describing an arbitrary list. I still gotta do X, Y, and Z today. The other day, my friend Bliss had said to me she still had to do X, Y, and Z, and when I was replying, even though the ability to just repeat her expression was right there, I just couldn't bring myself to say Z for Z, as it just sounds so weird to me. So I was like, yeah, you've still gotta do X, Y, and Z. Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z? Guys, I'm sorry. If you're gonna teach a song to a child on how to memorize the ABCs and you're gonna have it rhyme up until the last letter, guys, you gotta fix that, right? It's pretty embarrassing. It's very unsatisfying. W, X, Y, and Z. Makes more sense, all right? You're teaching your children wrong. The letters of the alphabet are pretty much the first thing you learn in school. So changing what you call a letter, it turns out, is pretty hard. Unless, of course, it's done without the context of knowing you're thinking about the actual letter. In the context of generations, I found it surprising just how many Brits say Gen Z as opposed to Gen Z. Though some do still say it Gen Z, but they're fighting against the grain. The term Gen Z has been used and heard so much outside the context of Z being a letter that it probably just slipped under the radar for most Brits. I don't hear many people over here talking about the famous rapper Jay-Z, or band ZZ Top, or even that big anime, Dragon Ball Z. No. But for me, I'm still stuck saying Z over Z in pretty much every single context, just because Z's like a nothing sound to me. I'm like, what is Z? What is Z? A lot of times, my choice of words splits in a very confusing way where I use both the US and UK terms for separate things. Like in the US, M&Ms, Skittles, gummies, and chocolates all fall under the umbrella term candies. And weirdly enough, I've been defaulting to the more British word for this, which is sweets. But when it comes to Snickers or Milky Way or even a Dairy Milk, I default to the more American expression, candy bar. In the UK, the word chocolate bar is by far the most popular term for this, and that is also used in the US, but for some reason, candy bar has just stuck with me. I went door to door selling candy bars as a kid so my parents could afford forcing me to play Little League baseball, so I bet having used that word so heavily as a kid has left a lasting impact on me. Unlike baseball. Now, I did grow up around horses and have given my mom's horses some little cameos whenever I'm back in Jersey, but the one American expression I still say, even though it's one that Brits find bizarre, is horseback riding. When I hear a Brit say horse riding, I don't know why, it just feels empty. Like it's missing something. The back, maybe. Hey, I think my brain just likes the rhythm of horseback riding. You know, it sounds like you're trotting. Horseback riding, as opposed to horse riding. I'm falling off the horse, guys. It's missing the flow. Maybe Brits ride other parts of the horse too. I don't know. And now it's time we talk about time. What word would you use to describe when something is rotating the same direction as a clock? For most people, it's clockwise. But here's where you and I might split. If something is going in the opposite direction, against the direction of a clock, what word would you use then? I still use the American expression for this, which is counterclockwise, or more in the Jersey way, counterclockwise. Sometimes the middle T just drops out. It's coming in a future video, we'll talk about that. In the UK, it's much more popular to say anti-clockwise. And I know that counter and anti are pretty much near synonyms in a way, but yet counterclockwise sounds fine to me. And when I hear anti-clockwise, it just sounds like someone's really against going the same direction as their clock. Guys, I am very anti-clockwise. Or it just sounds like someone's father's sister has a very strange last name. Oh, that's me anti-clockwise. Love her to death. Wish she could go the right direction though. And the Britishism that does my head in the most, that I don't think I will ever adapt to using as long as I live here, also involves time. I've got a few math degrees. I enjoy math. I especially enjoy mental math. I feel like my brain has some sort of weird math filter where the millisecond it detects a math equation, it's already working on solving it. This causes me to have quite a few issues with how Brits enjoy telling the time. If I show you this clock and ask you, what time is it? What would you say? Yes, you could say it's 4:30. That's said in both the US and the UK. You could also say it's 4:30. That's popular in both countries. But Brits get a little bit lazy on this, and they just skip a word. They say, oh, it's 4:30. So I ask all the time, hey, Brits, what time is it? And they say, oh, it's 4:30. And then I immediately think, oh, it's 2? No. And then my brain has to do a little fart. It goes, wait a minute, the Brits don't actually do that in a math way. They're actually meaning 4:30. Oh, right, there we go. And I get it. The one that always messes with me is actually when Brits say it's 1:30, because my brain goes, oh, it's 0.5? How is that possible? Oh, it's 1:30. And when I want to speak German, well, now I have to relearn everything over again, because in German, when they say, es ist 3:30, well, 4:30 doesn't actually mean 4:30 in Germany. It actually means the opposite. It's halfway to 4. So it's actually 3:30, and it just gets really confusing. I should have just stayed in the US and stayed just knowing one thing. I think when I hear the word half as like before a number, my brain goes into, that is now an algebraic equation. That is a math equation, it's arithmetic, it is integer values, as opposed to, that is a string of English language. The weird mix match of US and UK words and pronunciations I have means sometimes you never know what I'm gonna say or what it's gonna sound like, and sometimes neither do I. Besides these American words that I still find myself sticking with, I've also got an assortment of habits too. That video is coming soon. But before I wrap this up, let me just take a quick second to thank today's video sponsor. Hiya. No, I'm not in the desert today, even if you think my humor is quite dry. But whether I'm outside a gas station in Nashville, in the middle of the Sahara Desert, or cozy up here in my London flat, I'm glad I don't have to think twice about my online security, because I use today's video sponsor, mkii. So many companies these days are vying to get access to your private data. Your email addresses, phone numbers, shopping habits, and more can be collected by online data brokers. Some use it to target you with ads. Others in the US make more direct money off your private data by selling it to whoever pays them. Yeah, even your actual physical address. Thankfully, that's where mkii comes in. Mkii is a service that reaches out to all of these data brokers on your behalf and requests that they delete your data. And because so many of these new data brokers pop up here and there, mkii does this on a rolling basis, constantly scouring the internet to make sure your private data stays private. Since signing up to mkii, they've already gotten so many brokers to delete my data, and the line just keeps going up, which is both great news and kind of sad if you think about it. But hey, I'm glad I've got mkii fighting in my corner for me. If you want to see for yourself, mkii does a 30-day money-back guarantee. And I've heard they've got a really good offer on at the moment, because, you know, they told me. this is a brand deal, eh? If you sign up using my link, incogni.com/EvanEdinger, you can get a very hefty discount and reduce your spam calls. What's not to love? So thank you very much to Incogni for sponsoring. Now, let me wrap this up. Outro time. Welcome to the outro. So if you've been watching my channel for a bit, you might have noticed I've gotten all my big videos out of the way, mostly. A lot of the big ones that took a lot of production involving a lot of traveling and lots of editing. I finally got most of those now finished, which is great. So I'm in this state at the moment where I'm just trying to catch up on all the little half-scripted videos and try and, you know, give a little diversity and throw lots of different types of topics at you. Hope you've been enjoying them. If there is a topic you'd like to see me cover on this YouTube channel, please, I'm all ears. Leave me a nice comment. Otherwise, if you'd like to watch more words content, I've got a video for you right here. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next Sunday. Goodbye.